After Ukraine, the United States is now reportedly uneasy over Netanyahu's stance and the possibility that it could end up helping Putin in the wider geopolitical struggle. Is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu so scared of Putin's reaction that he's assisting an ally of Iran, Israel's archenemy? Has Bibi turned into a careful juggler, as he attempts to balance the pressures of the Iran conflict with his fear of provoking Russia? Is Israel betraying Ukraine, despite the fact that Kyiv has already received valuable support in countering Iranian-made Shahed drones? The United States is now stepping in as concerns grow that Israel may be helping Russia gain an advantage, while Ukraine remains trapped in a brutal and grinding war. Could Putin's nuclear threats toward Bibi ultimately become a turning point, with the warning potentially reshaping the course of the conflict and the broader war dynamic? Israel's prime minister is already juggling a multi-front war, and now he is finding himself caught between two world leaders amid accusations of theft and rising geopolitical pressure. A U.S. lawmaker has urged Israel to turn away Russian ships that are allegedly carrying stolen Ukrainian grain, adding a new layer of tension to an already volatile situation. On April 29, Joe Wilson said such moves would effectively support Moscow's war effort while also advancing Iran's agenda, which he argued would only deepen the conflict. In a letter sent to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Joe Wilson wrote the following, laying out his warning in direct and pointed terms. U.S. Representative Joe Wilson said, and I quote, "I write to express my deepest concern regarding reports of the purchase by Israel from Russia of stolen Ukrainian grain. At this moment, when Russia is supporting the Iranian regime attacks on Israel and America with intel and material, friends and allies must stand shoulder to shoulder against dictatorship. As Iran has also supported Russia in its unprovoked war against Ukraine, Israel and Ukraine should be natural allies in this fight against dictatorship and destabilization. Russia and Iran are close allies, operating as such in the plane of day. The same Shahed drones of Iranian design that Russia uses to kill Ukrainians, Iran uses to kill Israelis, Americans, and Arab allies. Russia and Iran have further cemented their partnership via a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement. Russia helps to arm Iranian proxies like the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas. Repeatedly, we find that Iran and Russia want the same thing for the world. Ukraine has made it a state priority to counter Iran due to its support for Russia. Ukraine has developed numerous new approaches to counter Iranian weapons, including state-of-the-art interceptor drone, so much so that our Arab allies have entered into agreements with Ukraine to defend against this critical shared threat. The courageous Ukrainian people have valiantly defended their country against a Russian-Iranian invasion for over 4 years. They should be an incredible ally and asset to Israel, facing many of the same challenges and maintaining a similar commitment to self-determination and sovereignty. Russia steals Ukrainian grain from the territories of Ukraine that it illegally occupies. It is critical that we not incentivize this behavior, which serves to fund Putin's war machine. Indeed, thanks to the alliance between Russia and Iran, a purchase of Ukrainian grain supports Iran as well. No country should involve themselves in purchasing stolen goods, but a purchase in this case cuts directly against U.S. and Israeli national security interests. I respectfully request that Israel turn back these illegal Russian ships carrying stolen Ukrainian grain. Moreover, Israel should seek to engage more deeply with Ukraine as a potential friend and ally. Ukraine and Israel are fighting the same dark axis of terrorism. Both stand to benefit by working together." Unquote. Ukraine has accused Israel of allowing grain that it says was stolen by Russia to be unloaded at Israeli ports, charging that cargoes from occupied Ukrainian territory are being quietly received despite Kyiv's objections. Ukraine's president has threatened to impose sanctions on anyone involved in these shipments, warning that individuals, companies, and intermediaries profiting from the trade in allegedly stolen grain will be held accountable by Kyiv. Kyiv maintains that these shipments have continued even after multiple appeals and formal protests to Israeli officials, arguing that its repeated warnings and diplomatic notes have so far failed to halt the traffic. Zelensky's warning has highlighted a deepening rift between the two nations amid their parallel wars, exposing growing frustration in Kyiv over Israel's stance and adding a new layer of tension to an already fragile relationship. A vessel named Panomitis entered Israel's Haifa Bay last week and remains anchored offshore, with Ukrainian officials alleging that it is carrying grain taken from Russian-occupied Ukrainian lands and pressing Israel not to let it unload. Details of the unfolding diplomatic tiff between Ukraine and Israel were laid out in a CNN article published on April 28, which described how the grain shipments have become a flashpoint in their relationship. Ukraine has said that the ship in question is carrying wheat stolen from territories occupied by Russia, accusing Moscow of looting grain from Ukrainian lands and then exporting it onward under false pretenses. Kyiv has claimed that this would be the second such shipment to dock and unload in Haifa this month, arguing that multiple cargoes of what it calls stolen grain have already been received at Israeli ports despite its protests. Zelensky said, and I quote, "In any normal country, purchasing stolen goods is an act that entails legal liability. This applies, in particular, to grain stolen by Russia. Another vessel carrying such grain has arrived at a port in Israel and is preparing to unload. This is not, and cannot be, legitimate business. The Israeli authorities cannot be unaware of which ships are arriving at the country's ports and what cargo they are carrying. Russia is systematically seizing grain on temporarily occupied Ukrainian land and organizing its export through individuals linked to the occupiers. Such schemes violate the laws of the State of Israel itself. Ukraine has taken all necessary steps through diplomatic channels to prevent such incidents. However, we see that yet another such vessel has not been stopped. I have instructed the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine to inform all partners of our state about the situation. Based on information from our intelligence services, Ukraine is preparing a relevant sanctions package that will cover both those directly transporting this grain and the individuals and legal entities attempting to profit from this criminal scheme. We will also coordinate with European partners to ensure that the relevant individuals are included in European sanctions regimes. Ukraine counts on partnership and mutual respect with every state. We are genuinely working to enhance security, particularly in the Middle East region. We expect that the Israeli authorities will respect Ukraine and refrain from actions that undermine our bilateral relations." Unquote. Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar accused Ukraine of engaging in what he called Twitter diplomacy, suggesting that serious matters between friendly states should not be conducted via social media outbursts and public posts. Saar also claimed that Ukraine had not yet submitted concrete evidence to support its allegation that the grain in question was stolen, arguing that allegations alone could not be treated as proof without formal documentation and legal cooperation. He further underlined that the contentious vessel Panormitis had not yet actually docked in Haifa, stressing that Israeli authorities were still examining the situation while the ship remained offshore. Since the war began in 2022, Kyiv has repeatedly accused Moscow of looting its agricultural resources, saying that Russian forces have systematically taken Ukrainian grain and other produce from occupied territories and pushed it into international markets. Israeli outlet Haaretz has reported that 4 shipments of illegal or allegedly stolen grain have already docked in Israel in 2026, a claim highlighted in coverage by CNN as part of the broader controversy over these cargoes. The report added that these controversial deliveries have been ongoing since 2023, with a total number of suspected grain shipments now crossing 30, underscoring how long this shadow trade has been in motion. Ukraine's foreign minister summoned Israel's envoy in Kyiv to lodge a formal protest over what he called a lack of adequate response from Israel to earlier complaints about ships carrying allegedly stolen grain. An Israeli official told CNN that Israel cannot simply seize the shipments without due process, stressing that any action must follow legal procedures and be based on verified evidence rather than accusations alone. The European Union has also weighed in, requesting information from Israeli authorities on the matter as it examines Ukraine's claims and considers the broader implications for sanctions and trade with Russia. An EU official said, quote, "We condemn all actions that help fund Russia's illegal war effort and circumvent EU sanctions, and remain ready to target such actions by listing individuals and entities in third countries if necessary." Israel-Ukraine ties have remained tense ever since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. With each new crisis adding strain to a relationship already marked by disagreements over the war and sanctions on Moscow. Israel has tried to keep channels of communication open with both Kyiv and Moscow, walking a careful line by providing humanitarian aid to Ukraine while avoiding the kind of overt military support that could provoke Russia. In recent weeks, Russia is reported to have sent multiple direct warnings to Israel concerning the situation involving Iran, signaling growing concern and heightened diplomatic tension between the two sides. Russia has repeatedly cautioned Israel that its actions could potentially trigger what it described as a major nuclear disaster within Iran, emphasizing the severe and far-reaching consequences of any escalation. These warnings from Russia, along with Benjamin Netanyahu's response to them, were reportedly covered by Channel 12 and later cited by the Times of Israel, shedding light on the behind-the-scenes developments. According to reports, Moscow had strongly objected to Israeli airstrikes being conducted in areas close to Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant, citing serious safety and geopolitical risks. Moscow further stated that Israel's military actions in the region were putting Russian experts as well as local civilians stationed at the plant in significant danger. Russia also highlighted that it had played a key role in partially constructing Iran's Bushehr nuclear facility and continues to assist in its ongoing operations and maintenance. Importantly, Russian officials warned that Israel's continued attacks in sensitive areas were not only risky but were also threatening to damage the broader bilateral relationship between Moscow and Tel Aviv. The Kremlin official said, quote, "You are placing our people in danger. This is a dangerous game that is likely to cause a major nuclear disaster, with grave implications for the Middle East. We call on you to stop," unquote. Due to the warning issued by Russia, the Israeli military reportedly altered its operating procedures in areas close to the Bushehr nuclear facility, indicating a shift in how it conducts missions near sensitive locations. The Israel Defense Forces clarified that it had previously been unaware of the potential dangers in the area and insisted that it had no intention whatsoever of causing harm to Russian personnel stationed there. Reports indicate that both Israel and the United States have carried out military strikes on Iranian targets located in and around the same region, contributing to rising tensions. An April 4 strike conducted near the Bushehr nuclear plant reportedly resulted in the death of an Iranian guard, highlighting the risks associated with operations in such a volatile zone. Following the incident, the chief of the International Atomic Energy Agency stated that there had been no recorded increase in radiation levels, offering some reassurance about nuclear safety.